The baby's cries pierced through the dimly lit diner like an alarm bell in the night. Plates rattled, spoons paused midair, and every head turned toward the corner booth where a tiny girl, no more than 1 year old, wailed uncontrollably. Her little fists clenched, her cheeks glistened with tears, and her voice carried the desperation only a hungry, exhausted child could hold. The mother, dressed in a perfectly tailored business suit, looked utterly out of place in the old roadside restaurant. Her diamond earrings caught the fluorescent light, her polished nails trembled as she tried to calm the baby, but it was no use. She rocked her gently, whispered into her hair, offered a bottle that the baby shoved away, and finally, with tears brimming in her own eyes, she leaned back in defeat. At that moment, a man emerged from behind the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, apron stained, hair messy, eyes weary yet kind. He was not just a chef, he was a single father who had known the sound of midnight cries, the panic of an empty fridge, and the ache of wanting to give more than life had allowed. His name was Daniel. And when he saw the child's distress, he didn't hesitate. Without asking permission, without waiting for approval, he grabbed a small pot, some fresh ingredients, and began to cook. Before I continue, let me pause here. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in how a single act of compassion can change a life, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive. The sizzling of butter, the gentle stir of rice, and the slow simmer of broth filled the air. Within minutes, a soft, comforting aroma wafted through the diner, warm, nurturing, almost like a hug in the form of food. Daniel approached the table with a small bowl of creamy rice porridge, simple yet soulful, the kind only a father who had once soothed a crying baby himself would know how to make. With practiced hands, he blew gently to cool each spoonful before offering it to the little girl. The baby hesitated, whimpered, then tasted it. A second later, silence fell over the diner. Her cries softened into small hiccups, her eyes closed as if in relief, and she opened her mouth again for more. Bite after bite, the storm of her hunger subsided. The mother sat frozen, her hands trembling, her perfectly painted lips parted in shock. This stranger, this humble chef, had done what she could not, he had reached her daughter's heart through something as simple as food. As the baby ate, the mother's eyes filled with tears. They weren't tears of embarrassment or pride but of something deeper, something raw. Because that recipe, that very dish, carried with it an echo of her past. It was the same porridge her late mother used to make for her when she was a child. The taste was unmistakable, filled with comfort, patience, and love. And now, in this rundown diner in the middle of nowhere, it was as if her mother's spirit had returned to hold her and her daughter in the most unexpected way. Daniel didn't ask her who she was. He didn't notice the chauffeur waiting outside the glass doors or the luxury car parked by the curb. He only saw a child who needed feeding, and a mother who looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. His own story was etched in every wrinkle on his face, every scar on his hands. A widowed father, raising his 7-year-old son alone, working double shifts to keep a failing diner alive. He understood struggle not as an observer but as a survivor. The billionaire mother, whose name was Isabella, had spent her life conquering boardrooms, building empires, and surrounding herself with people who bowed to her power. Yet here she sat, humbled to her core by a man who had nothing but gave everything in that moment. As she watched her daughter finally rest peacefully, she whispered a thank you, but her voice cracked, betraying the fortress she had built around her heart. That night, she lingered longer than she planned, ordering food not because she was hungry, but because she wanted to watch him. She saw the way he served customers with quiet dignity, the way he checked on his son's homework behind the counter, the way exhaustion clung to him but never dimmed his warmth. It was unlike anything she had ever known, a world where wealth was measured not in dollars but in love, sacrifice, and simple acts of care. Days turned into weeks. Isabella found reasons to return to the diner, sometimes with her daughter, sometimes alone. At first, she told herself it was just about the food, about the porridge that reminded her of her mother. But deep inside, she knew it was something more. Each time she walked in, she felt pieces of her guarded heart breaking open. For Daniel, her visits were both a blessing and a mystery. He didn't understand why a woman of her stature would keep coming back, but he never asked. He only treated her as he treated everyone, with kindness, not knowing that this simple truth was the very thing she had been missing all along. One stormy evening, when the diner was nearly empty, Isabella broke down. She confessed to Daniel how lonely her wealth had made her, how losing her mother had left a hole that no success could fill, how terrified she was of failing her daughter in ways no amount of money could fix. Daniel listened without judgment. He told her about nights when his son cried for his late mother, about days when the bills stacked higher than the hope in his chest, and how he, too, often felt like he was failing. But then he said something she would never forget: "We may not be perfect parents, but if we love them with everything we've got, it will always be enough." That night, for the first time in years, Isabella felt at home. Not in her mansion, not in her empire, but in a small diner with a man who taught her that true wealth was not power, but love. Her tears flowed freely, not from weakness, but from healing. And Daniel, though he never sought gratitude, realized that sometimes feeding one hungry soul could nourish another's starving heart. As the weeks passed, Isabella quietly helped him fix up the diner, sending resources without taking credit. Daniel's business began to flourish, not because of charity, but because people could taste the love in every dish he made. Isabella and her daughter became part of his little world, and Daniel's son found in them a family he never thought he would have again. The world may have seen them as opposites, a billionaire and a struggling chef, but in truth, they were two broken souls who had found wholeness in each other. By the end, the diner was no longer just a roadside stop. It was a place where second chances were served with every meal, where a crying baby had brought together two lives that were never meant to cross, yet somehow, beautifully, did. And as Isabella watched her daughter giggle in Daniel's arms, her heart whispered a silent prayer of thanks, for the recipe that brought her to tears, for the man who had fed her child, and for the love she never thought she would find again. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, family, and second chances, then please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than you know, and it helps keep these stories alive for others who may need them. Because sometimes, the simplest acts, like feeding a crying baby, can change the course of two lives forever.